Hello, good afternoon from sunny Bristol. I have to stop maybe for a moment or so. Welcome to the Center for Fine Prints Lunchtime Seminar on today, the 20th of October. And I'd like to welcome Tonia Lu as well from the House of Prints. Thank you for joining us and thank you for taking the time off and presenting some of the work, which hopefully will be of interest not just to the Center for Fine Print Research, but also for our MA multidisciplinary printmaking students and the print community that overall. So quite a few have joined us there. So just to say that that you started the House of Print quite recently, and also operating a bursary scheme. And we are also joined today by Julia Syrzistie. I'm going to have trouble pronouncing the surname, so I probably won't. From Julia, who's joining us from Poland, and also from Ellie Haywood, two recent joinees from the House of Prints. So, well, without further ado, just to say that this presentation is recorded, so anyone who would like to listen to it again at a later stage can on the Center for Fine Print or the Center for Print Research website. And Woon-Jin is going to lead the question and answer session afterwards. So please feel free to join and type some questions in the chat on the right-hand side of the platform as well. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn my camera off, but my microphone will stay on. Tonya, over to you now.
Thank you, Frank. And thanks for having me. I'll just share my slides. Yeah. Is that working?
Perfect, thank you.
Great. Okay. Hello, everyone, and thanks for having me. And it's just been a really interesting experience preparing for this presentation. And also, I was just saying to Julia before we come on stage, if you like, I've not done a presentation about House of Prints before, so I'm slightly, when I was asked, I thought, are people actually interested in this? So I had a lot of thinking about why did we do this? Why did I come to start House of Prints? And that's been really fruitful, actually. So a little bit of background about me to start with. I have a background actually in museum studies and curating. So I studied at University of Leicester and then University of Glasgow. I worked in Scotland and England in sort of curatorial project management roles. I used to manage art festivals mostly, and quite often in rural areas. So I'm really interested in things that are in the margin. I was awarded my PhD in art and community and economy in rural Scotland from University of Glasgow. Currently, I work in Cornwall alongside running House of Prints. I work as an advisor for visual art and craft sectors in Cornwall. It's part of an EU-funded program. So in the process of doing all these different jobs and currently being a business advisor, really, I came to think about a lot about art and the economy, and art as a commodity in a way. And it was actually back in 2018 when I first thought of the idea of House of Prints and wanting to do something with prints, because over the years of working in visual art, prints always is something that's quite close to my heart. I'm not a printmaker, so I'm not. Things I'm talking about today is not going to be technically to do with printmaking, but I think it's the idea that it was born as a medium to spread message, and it's also a democratic art form that is affordable and accessible to a lot of people. And there's a tension between that accessibility and the fact you can, back in the 1930s, there were artist collectives in America who were producing prints for about $1 each and selling them for $5 each. So the idea of the conflicting feeling of it being an art form and as in something everyone can have is quite interesting to me. So So back in 2018, I thought maybe we can set up something that can really help artists, printmakers, and really get people to understand printmaking as an art form. And through the years working in visual arts, it always surprised me how many people don't understand. Even it is someone who's a curator, a collector, they don't quite get how prints are different. So back in 2019, I did a tour of print studios, which I'm really pleased about, because I went around to Spike Island, Double Elephant, Hotware Press, Glasgow Print Studios, Print Studio in Dundee, um, just the East London printmakers. So quite a few went around, and it's just nice to speak to people. And everyone's been so generous and be so enthusiastic about a new idea. So I thought, okay, this could work. So come to sort of 2020 when the pandemic hit, we thought, okay, I need to do something about this. I can't just sit on this idea and then, what, this is a good time to launch this as a way of helping artists, but also a way of helping with everything else that's happening around us. So the first few slides is actually about the prints that really inspired me and are really interesting. These are from about a century ago. People will recognize that's from Kata Kowitz, the mothers, really well known. So expressionism prints, the whole idea of prints being a revolutionary and a political tool that's conveying messages is really something quite unique. I feel that was a century ago, and that was something always I had in my mind. And we have the pop art era of using screen printing, Guerrilla Girls, and a very underrated printmaker, in my opinion, is Karita Kent, who's known as well as a social activist who used screen prints to convey her ideas. More recently, we got Just Seas and the Hope poster by Shepherd Ferry. So, and then more recently with Extinction Rebellion, I really loved the story about how Clive Russell, the designer, came across the lettering of a Futura print, a wood type, and then made it digital to generate the font, the typeface they use. And then they reproduced that in letterpress form, and they've been using it when they were out protesting as well. So they actually were printing people's t-shirt, etc., using this set of wood block or letterpress while they were there. So that was really interesting to me of how printmaking is still being used so widely in the contemporary context. So yes, we launched to a campaign called Made for NHS, where we donated. So House of Prints takes 30% from all sales via the website, but for all the charitable events, especially for the first one, we actually donated all of our commission, and the artists still take their 70%. Although many artists, like I think Winjin included, has donated more from their share to the NHS pot as well. So it was kind of one of those typical shower thoughts, and you thought, okay, you want to do this, but you don't want to feel like you are selling something while everyone is struggling or trying to solve a crisis. So we did that, and that was just had a really interesting and a really positive feel about it. There was a collector from America ordered 5 prints from us, and we ended up talking quite a lot, and he said his wife works in healthcare, and there's just quite a lot of it were presents for his wife, and talking about how some prints just have that ability to really I suppose comfort people. And also, he ordered one of the prints from Anamaro, which is very much sunshine and palm tree and beach, and is what a lot of people were missing in the lockdown. So that was just really a nice thing to do, and we did fairly well out of that. I had a few other artist friends who were involved who are not necessarily printmakers, but they brought a really nice audience for us. So then we did another event just about a couple months after that called Conversation Piece, and that was with the charity Shout, which is a mental health charity that really support you through text. And I know a few people who's been helped by them. And that was, so the focus of that event is all pieces to do with conversation and communication. And then before Christmas, we had the event called At Home, and that was in partnership with Refuate. They support refugees to retrain in language or get qualification or retrain at university level so they can get into employment. They were a really lovely bunch. We actually worked really closely together. They selected artworks that they really like, including people they work with and their staff. They wrote lovely text about each of the pieces as well, and that was just a really nice thing to do. The NHS event was a lot more successful than the other two. I think when you launch a new thing, people are really curious and really interested. The other two, I actually did find my energy for selling is, I'm not a natural salesperson. My energy for selling does sort of have a limit. So so after we've done the three, we had a break. So we've not had a charitable event this year because I've been trying to review and thinking about how do we balance between this idea of selling things as well as trying to follow our original ethos of print as something for good and for social change. So we also did series of interviews with artists and articles in our journal, and Wenjing actually featured in the Artist in Quarantine as one of the people who were featured. I couldn't find a screenshot for it, and it's gone. So, but it was just lovely to have those long telephone conversations with artists and write things up, just reflecting their thoughts. And a lot of people had a very different experience during lockdown. People who lived alone had a very different experience to people who were living with family or actually too much family. Other people have makeshift ways of making prints in their house or turn to drawing, turn to painting a little bit. So it's been very interesting and very rewarding for me. And I was very amazed. I was really amazed and also feel privileged that the artist has shared those information with me, and being able to know some quite intimate details of how they've been dealing with things was really useful, and really makes me think about things and how can we support them better a lot more. So then there's the graduate bursary. It was, so when I went on the tour of print studios, I kept in contact with quite a lot of the print studio directors and managers I've met along the way, and I was never quite sure what to do with them, because originally I thought, okay, we can have a directory of print studios, but there are so many print studios popping up on smaller scales, on different scales. There's just going to be a lot of work to maintain and a lot of work for the print studios to make sure they are updated on the website. So the idea of a graduate bursary also came from some conversation with some of the artists who has just graduated and talking about how difficult it's been without a degree show, without a lot of input in terms of how do you transform between being a student to being a professional. So I thought, okay, we made a little bit of profit from the conversation piece event. So I thought, why don't we just reinvest it in a bursary? So the bursary is not huge, it's £350 that they can spend on whatever they need. But then also what's really quite generous is the 3 print studios, so Double Elephant in Exeter, Thameside in London, and Hotback Press in Salford, all offered really generous sort of time allowance for the graduate as a match. So there are 3 bursaries available. all of them were selected with the studio. We had so many applications. I was over the moon with the quality of applications. There's so many of them. I think about 10 of the graduates who applied, I kind of kept in touch with them, just because I thought, okay, we only have 3 bursaries to offer. We can't really help that many people, but you know, at least there's someone they can talk to if they want to. So I think we had about 90 to 100 applications. So Julia and Ellie will tell you a bit more about their experience, but the third bursary winner was Elizabeth Rose. She's actually based in America. She was doing a residency in Poland when the lockdown happened, so she was trapped in Poland for a while, and then she was selected by Double Elephant, and it was her children's studio to work in as well. So she still hasn't been to Exeter yet. She's now back in America. She couldn't join us because of the time difference, and also she's traveling today, I think. But she's a wonderful artist, and I'm sure I'll share a link or something of her website. She's lovely. So that's more or less what we've been up to, and a little bit on what's happening next. After quite a few months of reflecting what we've done so far and what we've achieved, I would like House to Prints to move on to more project-based work as well. So as well as doing the charitable selling, as well as being a selling platform, we would like to work with our artists on actual projects that will lead to new body of work, and potentially some more interesting projects and other medium as well, potentially physical exhibitions. So I will be sending a call out soon for project ideas. So what House of Prints will do, we will take care of the project management, fundraising, and a lot of that aspect if we feel this idea really fits with our remit. I think all the House of Prints artists are aware of it, but it's not been publicized yet. So this is the first time to talk about it. We would also like to facilitate discussions a bit more. So we are hoping to start a crit club that will happen probably once every other month, that will be open to printmakers from different stage of their career. We'll have a panel that will feedback on people's work and what they've been working on. And I mentioned briefly earlier to some of us at the table is we are also working with University of Plymouth to run a symposium alongside a project that they are doing. It's about text and visual artists, and how it's a bit of a dilemma for artists, because obviously a lot of visual artists turn to the medium because that's their primary method of expression. But then when you try to build your career in the visual art, writing is so often required, and how do you deal with that? And then the second part of the symposium will be about publishing, whether it's prints, artist books, or zines. So it will be really interesting. I'll send out the information when it's ready. We haven't run a graduate bursary program this year, but we are hoping to run it again next year. So you'll all hear from us about that as well. Right, I will now, I think, stop sharing the screen, and I'll hand over to Julia, who will talk about what she's been up to.
Okay, so I am a graphic designer and printmaker, graduate of Glasgow School of Art with a BA in communication design. I specialized in where I developed an interest in printmaking, in particular letterpress printing, as I felt it allowed me to tie in my interest in image making, typography, and book arts together. And
Julia, I'm sorry, we can't see your screen. Have you tried?
Oh, no, sorry.
Yes, now we see it. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, I'll leave it as it is. So at GSA, we have facility called the Case Room, which had a vast collection of wood and metal type. And in my final year, I was interested in exploring letterpress within a design context, where whether it's part of my process or as the topic of my project. Sorry, I'm just gonna do that because I'm not in full screen for some reason. This was the case with my final degree show project, where I worked with sculpture, printmaking, book design, and in collaboration with two writers, Sarah Smith and Eloise Birtwistle, to explore the story and material qualities of the historical typeface, the Dobbs type, which I'm sure some of you might be familiar with, but just in case you're not, basically the typeface was thought to be destroyed by its owner over 100 years ago by being dumped into River Thames. But around 2013, it was retrieved from the river and made into a digital font, which the book is set in, and which it explores from multiple angles and perspectives. In my final year, I also worked on other projects where letterpress was not necessarily used to produce the final outcome, but rather as part of the research phase, or in combination with other digital and print processes. For example, here I used letterpress initially, scanned my prints in, and then designed a book cover, which I then screen printed. And similarly, in this left-hand side piece, I worked in letterpress and then screen printed the work to allow for large size print. So this is basically the portfolio which I applied for the bursary with. And I think part of the reason why I was selected to work at Hotbed Press was because compared to other facilities that the studio offers, printing and etching, letterpress is not as popular amongst studio members and with sort of classes. So it worked both for me and the studio for me to make use of their letterpress facilities. And I was awarded the bursary in September 2020, but because of the studio being closed, as well as travel restrictions, I was only able to go this September, so it took pretty much a year to organize. But the silver lining of that was that alongside the bursary from House of Prints, I was also able to apply for funding through Creative Europe. So I, through a project called iPortinus, which basically allows artist mobility from different EU countries, which still includes the UK. So being based in Poland, I was able to travel to Manchester for 3 weeks. Just thought I'd mention it because it's quite a good, fun to apply for. So when I arrived, going back. When I arrived at Hotbed Press, I spent the first week experimenting, as I felt quite rusty after basically a year and a half of working on digital graphic design projects and not really having the space or equipment to work with printmaking in a physical manner. But I soon realized that I wanted to spend my time at Hotbed Press thinking about what role letterpress plays within my practice and spend the time experimenting rather than trying to make something final within the 3 weeks. throughout the opportunity, I was reading this great book titled Natural Enemies of Books, and found one essay from 1937 by Jane Grabhorn, which especially resonated with me. It questioned the importance of typographic knowledge and professionalism within letterpress printing. And for me, as someone who doesn't come from a traditional printmaking background, but rather a design one, I was thinking about working with mistakes in letterpress rather than against them, and pushing how I can use letterpress within my practice outside of its original purpose. And while having great appreciation for the history and expertise required for letterpress printing, as a graphic designer, that's something I strive to achieve on screen through digital design rather than through printmaking. And letterpress printing gives me room to work with a more unexpected and unplanned outcome. And yeah, so I'm hoping to develop this project further into some sort of publication or catalog of letterpress mistakes and accidents, and yeah, work on it as a long-term project that's hopefully going to be spent in other letterpress studios. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much to Tonia and Center for Print Research for inviting me along today.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much for sharing your presentation, for sharing your work with us. Now, Ellie Haywood, if you can join us from the broom cupboard, and I shall.
Working now.
You can hear you now. Perfect. Yes, carry on.
Excellent. Sorry guys, technology is not my forte. That's why I made print, which involves no computers or anything. Yeah, so my name's Ellie. I was the recipient of the House of Prints Bursary for Thameside in London. Yes, so thank you for joining. I'm originally from Cornwall, but I live in London. And as I'm saying, I'm in a Westfield changing room just on my break from work, but I really wanted to do the talk and show you guys what I've been up to. I'm just starting, I guess, with this print. It was something that I'm going to kind of work through from my time. So I should say that I did a BA at the Slade, and since I graduated in 2020, my sculpture, my practice, looks at both sculpture and print. And as you can see, there's a lot of like architectural references, and I'm interested in like liminal space, in between spaces in everyday life. Yeah, I would say that there's probably a lot of maybe a sense of familiarity in the prints, but there's also kind of an element of like they're removed somehow. So they're kind of, a lot of people have said they feel like they're in little worlds. But yes, so I first discovered print. Well, I've always had an interest in it. I went to Kingston Foundation, and the print room there is insane. I would highly recommend a visit. If you go there, definitely check it out. It's really good. But yeah, so it's kind of, can be quite intimidating, I think. There's so many different layers, so many different processes with print, which is kind of, for me, the process is what kind of drew me to it. So yeah, I'll go to the next slide, if that's right, Tanya, sorry. The next slide, yeah, thank you. Oh wow, yeah, okay, so they're quite minimal slides, but these are some of the first prints that I did while studying at Slade. So my course was a 4-year BA, and the print room again at Slade is like, it's incredible. It's one of my favourite places in the whole world. And so I remember seeing this artist who was in the year above me doing these amazing prints, and I was like, how is he applying the tone to them? Like, I was doing hard grounds, and hard ground is fab, but for me the tone has such a sculptural quality, and as I was in the sculpture area, I really wanted to try it. But there's, as I say, it's kind of can sometimes feel quite intimidating to start a new process, which, you know, with print there's such a process, especially etching, there's such a process you have to follow. But then you can kind of adapt it and manipulate it to work for you and find your own language within it. So yeah, I saw this artist, his name is Tom Parkhouse, and he was making these beautiful prints. And I was like, how are you doing that? And then in my third year, I basically started, and the print on the left-hand side was the first Aquatint that I did. Somebody said they looked like the McDonald's sign, which kind of upset me, but we'll go with it. And yeah, and going back to what Tonya said in the beginning about print being sometimes misunderstood, I think I've had these conversations. I recently had my postponed degree show, which just ended like a month ago. And people were looking at my prints and they think there was like charcoal drawings was mentioned. And I think what makes print so exciting is it's like alchemy. Like it's incredible what you can do with some metal, some acid. So yeah, I should say that etching is my main thing. These are all etchings. And so yeah, these are smaller prints. But yeah, we can go to the next slide, if that's all right. Oh yeah, this is the next slide. Okay, so this is just, it's a 2-meter print. So I made this while studying still at the Slade, and it's a 2-plate print. For me, at scale, you'll see later on in this presentation with the sculpture that I make, for me, scale, it's so exciting, especially with print, because as I was saying earlier, I know I'm speaking very fast, I will try to slow down. I don't know, you have a certain process that you follow, but like as I was saying, you can kind of, once you understand it, you can then kind of change it to suit or work for how you want to use it. And for me, scale was something I had to try with print. And so I think these plates are 90 by 60 centimeters each, I think. Yeah, and then joined visually by the arch in the middle. But printing it, as we'll see on the next slide, was insane. But this is also, yeah, so here we go. This is my friend Abby helping me print it. And this is a picture of my studio on the left. So I'm quite chaotic as a maker, I would say. But out of the chaos, I do get some clean prints. And yeah, so this print in particular was photo etching combined with Aquatint. Yeah, so some of the photographs, it's hard to see, but are photographs of my sculptures. So there's that, like, I should say one of the main things as well for me with print and sculpture is that relation between 2D and 3D. And kind of somewhere in between the two is, I know it sounds silly, is somewhere where I feel that my work kind of exists. But as you'll see later on, the sculptures and the print, I feel like the sculptures are actually more like drawings in space. I use casting processes, which allows me to repeat images. I feel like casting and print are also extremely similar. I see them as the same thing. It's about replication and multiples, and I think that's quite an exciting thing. But yeah, so this is me printing, well, Abby helping me. If we can go to the next slide as well. Okay, so this is now the bursary. I was at Thameside, as I said, and I absolutely loved it. It was amazing. I learned so much. First of all, it's got a lovely boat outside, which apparently the Beatles performed on, just a fun fact for a pub quiz. And I kind of, whilst I was studying, I do this thing of make a plate, print it, move on to the next one. And so for me, I didn't really know how to addition, and additioning is such a skill. I know it sounds silly, but I had no idea how difficult it is. And so basically the images of me just inking up this plate, which was on the first slide. And I've done it like an Aquatint after time. I use copper predominantly, only because that's what we could use at Slade and not nitric and zinc. But yeah, like getting the edges clean, all those kind of things is I learned from people around me, which I'm sure everyone here can appreciate. Just being surrounded by amazing printmakers and speaking to them and learning from them and picking up tips from them, and it's such a community studio. But I think all print studios are, and all printmakers, you just learn from each other, and I think that's why I love print so much. Sorry, we can go to the next slide as well. Oh yeah, these are videos, so I don't know if we can play them. Sorry, I've got something in my throat. I don't know if they're gonna, do they work? Basically, they're videos of me inking up the plate, which sounds really boring, but I did them because I wanted to kind of maybe, I think also over lockdown, like I graduated into a pandemic, and as everyone could probably understand, like maybe not, but Instagram, I guess, was helpful to try and, yeah, almost kind of put your work out there, you know, especially not having had the degree show in 2020, and kind of showing other people how I make the work, because I don't think, you know, my parents really understand the process, and I think it's such an exciting process that everyone should try it at least once in their lives. Is it working, Tonya?
No, I'm afraid.
That's sad. Is the one on the right
Oh,
working?
actually, one sec. Let me try something else.
Okay. Little hiatus. It's a bit disjointed, but it's just a time lapse. Everyone's done it. I don't understand technology, but I managed to do this. So yeah, this is just me cleaning it, and yeah, you get the idea. I just included them just for a bit of fun and games at lunchtime, but yeah, learning how to really clean your plates, and it sounds silly, but like soaking paper for 24 hours and putting it in a bin bag overnight really helps. So just talking to other printmakers who have more knowledge than you and learning from them, basically. That's one of the biggest things that the bursary gave me. We can probably go to the next slide, Tanya, thank you. This print is, again, with graduating into pandemic, you have a lot of things that happen online, which is great, I love that, but it's hard to show print on a digital screen, so I think I found that quite challenging, and that's why I think also the videos are helpful to give it the physicality that maybe it loses online. If we go to the next slide, that'd be great. So this is called Bridge the Gap. I started making it whilst I was at the Slade, and then the pandemic hit in March, and I left it half aquatinted, and I put it in a drawer and said goodbye to it for a couple of months. But yeah, for me, a massive part of my interest in print is the sculptural element, and so I was like, the emboss around the plate is so exciting, and so they are beautiful as objects, like the plates themselves, and so I wanted to incorporate that more with these ones. The embossing ones, I basically etched them for 14 hours and then file them to give it the edge of the image is the edge of the plate. So the paper gets pushed through and it does some cool stuff, and so it's that playing of positive and negative, so that's super exciting. I don't know if that video plays, but we don't need to see it. It was just me stopping stuff out. You get the idea. It just gives a sense of scale, but we can probably move on because I'm probably babbling. Yeah, so this is another one of Thames side. So this is another double plate print. It just, yeah, they have some really good presses. So the next one. And this is just another embossed one, which I was kind of working with. It's very hard to see from the image, but it's just that positive and negative. That's that kind of space. But yeah, they're kind of, I have a lot of motifs and themes that appear in the work, so it's quite nice just to kind of, you'll see echoes. I'm sorry, I've got loads of slides to go. Maybe we'll go to the next one and we'll just quickly, this is my degree show work, which happened literally as finished a month ago. So the sculpture, I thought I'd include some because there's a lot of print elements in it. The side panels, if we go to the next slide, they're all etched, they're aluminium plates etched in copper sulfate, and I started to incorporate carborundum, which is like this textural thing which you ink up, and you probably know, but I wanted to use it more as a detail, as like more of a feature, I guess, within the work. We could probably go to the next one as well. Yeah, and I've printed some of them, and so it's like flattening those 2 to 3D, flattening them. And we go to the next one. Sorry, I'm now rushing through, and there's just another image of it so you can see it. But the rotunda is such an amazing space. I've always wanted to show my work there whenever the degree show happened, but it's like a corridor space, so it's quite, yeah, it feels a bit like a stage. They feel a bit like characters, or they're quite animal-like, and when you're around them, but they're huge, they're much, much bigger than yourself, which is what I want for you to experience when you see the work. Go to the next one. Some more prints for more etchings, but yes, so yeah, these ones, I do some little ones that kind of, people ask me, is it the print or the sculpture first, but they are totally separate. I would never show them together. They feel very separate, and as I say, these guys feel very sculptural, whereas the sculptures do feel quite intuitive. This is the last slide, I think this is the last slide. And yeah, this is just the last one, just my print there, and yeah, I feel like I rushed the ending, but I don't know if I mentioned everything I needed to. Did I mention everything? I think I did. But yeah, Thames was amazing. I ended up working with an artist who was there assisting her for a couple of months on her project. So it was great to just meet fellow printmakers basically and learn from them. I've learned so much, and I now run an etching club at Artichoke, and yeah, it's enabled me to have more confidence in editioning and really kind of pushing my work. I should say as well, one last thing and then I'll be quiet. Print is like, for me, pushing the boundaries of it, because it has so much potential, and as I say, you could use the same process but come out with a completely different image. So yeah, that's me. I'm sorry if I spoke really fast. It's a good thing it's being recorded. Yeah, sweet. Thank you very much for having me as well. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, sweet.
Thank you very much. That was fantastic.
I'm so sorry if I spoke fast.
So excellent, thank you. And I will put the videos that you try to phone into, when I edit the recording a little bit, I'll put the videos into it. So handing over to Woon Jin, thank you for joining us at the stage. Thank you to the stage, and maybe Tonya and Ellie and Julia, if you'd like to come on stage as well. Last answer second. Over to Woon Jin, see whether she's any insights to share from the chat.
Thank you so much for your talks, Tonya, Julia, and Ellie. They were really, and your slides as well, really illuminated the kind of wider circles in which you work. Because when I was listening to you, I realized that you're talking about print in society, print as communication, and print in terms of sculptural form. So you each have this kind of common area, but you also have these much larger worlds that kind of focus your ideas, and they seem to join in the middle. So it's really impressive to see. I want to know if you could just briefly say what you're excited about in the next month or so, because we have very short time for question and answer, and I love the way that you're all thinking. So I was thinking maybe if you tell me what you're working on in the next while we wait for questions from others. Do you want to go first, Ellie? Yes, because you're in a rush.
Oh no, I think it's okay. They can paint the chocolate factory about me. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just going to continue. I haven't been able to, so I had my show a month ago, and I haven't been able to make much recently. Somebody outside. So I think I'm working on a 70 by 1 meter plate at the moment, which I put the hard ground on, and I just really want to make some new work, to be honest. And yeah, kind of maybe do some more, like some really like large prints, shocking, but like 3 meter long prints or something. Try and really push it. I'm not sure how I'd try that, but yeah, kind of keep pushing that area, I guess.
Thank you. How about you, Julia?
For me, one of the issues that I've come across is that I think open access print studios are very much a UK thing. And going back to Poland, I realized that it's actually really hard to join a print studio unless it's like a class that you want to take from like a beginner's sort of perspective. So in terms of printmaking, I think I've come to the realization that I really need to keep applying for opportunities in the UK. So yeah, that's sort of my plan for now. But alongside doing that, I am lucky to have freelance graphic design work that's sort of more regular.
From many other people that it's hard to find community-based print shops across the world. I think in America they have them, but they don't tend to have them in Asia either. So I wonder if there's a way of you maybe connecting a few people and getting the money together to put a press in a shed somewhere. But yeah, it's a good point, Julia. Also, Karina, the director of Centre for Fine Print Research, says we're about to make a call for residencies, so you might consider applying. Actually, she has a question. Do you mind, Tonya, if I divert the conversation towards Ellie? She has a question about Ellie's inspiration for sculptural forms. Could you talk a little bit about that crossover between sculpture and print, please?
Yeah, so I mean, with me and the sculptures, I say, like, they feel very intuitive. And I guess, thank you for the question, by the way. I guess the inspiration comes from just, I mean, the everyday spaces that we inhabit, I guess, essentially. But I mean, for me, that orange sculpture, the reason why it's semicircle was I always knew I would show it in that rotunda space. I originally showed it for my interim show, and I kind of wanted it to echo or kind of mimic that actual space. But I guess also, as I said, mentioned casting for me as a way of replicating a form and making it much, much bigger and kind of interrupting and intervening the space. But yeah, they are just very temporary objects with like, they almost feel like facades, because on the etching plates themselves, there's images of like, you know, quite architectural things, or images and objects associated with buildings like screws, braces, all those kind of things. Those are the details in the works that I think also are in the prints. But yes, sorry, I'm reading the comments as they're coming through. So yeah, there's that element of temporality and a facade to them, and yeah, I take my inspiration for the forms from everyday architecture, and especially like looking up high around the city and seeing things that maybe you wouldn't necessarily see if you were just wandering around, not really paying much attention. But yeah, that's where it is. But I guess also the colours kind of detract from that. They kind of make them feel kind of removed in that respect. So it's kind of, that's kind of the inspiration. I don't think I've explained that at all well. But yeah, the three-legged sculptures. Oh, what are they?
Feels a little bit like you're making a visual representation of a flat object of a sculptural object in a flat format, which is then coming back into the three-dimensional form.
Yeah, as if it's been like steamrolled or something, I don't know, and then springs back or something like that. But yeah, for me, they are quite weird. They do feel like drawings, and they don't feel very sculptural to me at all. Maybe that's because I'm so at depth with the making of them, and they have to be so flat pack. I'm not sure, but for me, and other people have said they do feel very much like drawings. So yeah, I don't know if that really answers the question, but yeah.
Thank you so much. Shall I loop back to Tonya about your projects for the next few months? And also, I guess what really impresses me is how you've been very agile in your thinking, that you've sort of tried partnerships with various charities, and then you've looped back to focusing on artists and giving them a voice, and then you've looped back into like thinking about helping young artists. You've sort of been very agile in your decision making and in including people. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, well, thank you. I think that's the benefit of, I think one of the reasons why I set up House of Prints is I've run public funded organizations before, and making changes like that, or being responsive like that, it's really difficult. So that's why I wanted something of myself, and I also wanted not to be entirely rely on public funding, so we can actually change direction as things go. My first reaction is actually, oh yeah, that's the good thing about this whole made up thing of House of Prints. Because it's just me, and I try to, I do think the artists as part of the team almost. So, you know, a lot of times I do email the artists to ask for their ideas, and you know, you've been really helpful. So is Gemma Gunning. There are quite a few people. I think I saw Simon Tozer in the audience as well. Simon's been really helpful as well. So it's been, you know, I don't ever feel like I'm running this alone, and I don't feel isolated in doing it. But in terms of what's coming up, I'm planning the next charitable event. I want to do one before Christmas. So, you know, it's just a good time to do it. The very suitable charity this time is Fair Share. I don't know if everyone's heard of them. They redistribute unused food from supermarkets and the catering industry into food banks and households and people living in poverty. So they did a huge amount of work at the beginning of the lockdown when all the catering industry was shutting down, and hospitality. So yeah, it's amazing. They're one of those charities that has such low percentage of running cost in terms of what they do, and they're just really heartening. So we will be running another event in the run-up to Christmas in partnership with them, so that the deal is at least 15% of the sales will go to them, and still the artists can decide whether they want to donate their 70% or not. Beyond that, I'm just really excited about what projects might come forward when we actually call out for projects, and also the symposium next year. We have a few really good keynotes lined up for that. And I like text and I like sort of words as well as visual art. So I'm quite excited and just can't wait for that to happen. But you know, hopefully we'll manage as well as Frank and Winjin's managing today. So, yeah.
I'd love to invite you all to the Impact Symposium that we're planning in Bristol in September next year. So it'll be a real life conference with lots of exhibitions, demonstrations, talks, and ways of connecting and networking. We're planning a digital participation opportunity as well. So if you can't actually get over, you'll at least be able to see some of the talks and join in some of the conversations. So I know we've run over a little bit, so I think I'll start to wrap up. I think Karina has mentioned a name that you could connect with. Tonya Alicia Candiani is in Argentina. She does Proyecto ACE. And then obviously we'd love to be able to connect with you. So we'll put your details in the CFPR blog. And really lovely to see your work, Ellie and Julia. It's really inspiring to see other approaches to print. I also have a personal interest in Dove's Press because I was very tickled when I heard about this guy throwing away his life's work into the River Thames for it to be discovered 100 years later. So I really love the project that you chose. Thank you so much for your time.
For having us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been such a lovely experience.
I wish I could see everyone.
You will be able to see everyone once when you look at the recording that will come up on the CFPR website at some point. So, well, not everyone, but you know, so all sorts of people. So hopefully, as Wenjin said, we're going to have the Impact next year. We'll also try and do the next, maybe not the next one, but seminars will be in a hybrid format, so which means that we will still be on Remo, but we'll try and be in person time. So all the, because otherwise we couldn't have people from Poland or from other places in the world joining us, but it's nice to have a physical connection as well. So look out for those. So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you Tonya and Ellie and Julia and Wenjin for leading the question and answering session after. I'm just going to finish up by saying our next Lunchtime seminar is on Wednesday, the 3rd of November, when our very own Fabio Dagnano is going to talk to us or to present the work that he's done for the UNESCO for All project called Prototypes the Blind. So looking forward to seeing you all there. Thank you again. Have a lovely Wednesday afternoon. I hope to stay sunny. Take care. Bye-bye.